Now that I've answered the most simple foundational questions that everyone has, that everyone is asking to justify that are left unanswered, therefore to justify what they're seeing and what they've been made to believe and are convinced of by PR strategy. Now that we've answered those questions, I'm going to give you a brief clipping collage of the Netflix show, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Well, it's in a way, I'm going to leave it up to you to see this for what it is now that we've discussed the context of all of this narrative and why this has taken place, and you're going to hopefully see it for what it is and gain that clarity that you need. So we're going to look at these series of clips.
Orchestrated reality show. Yeah. But it was, rehearsed.
This is Megan saying it's an orchestrated reality show and that the engagement was rehearsed, but naturally, in effect,
Orchestrated reality show. Yeah.
this whole thing is an orchestrated reality show. It's interesting that she says that it's an orchestrated reality show when it's her engagement interview, because she's really talking about the whole narrative and the whole facade of being engaged and having a relationship. Because there's no way you would say an orchestrated reality show just for the sake of an engagement interview. That would just be saying, well, it was rehearsed. Like, why would you say it's an orchestrated reality show? There's no reason for it. Orchestrated reality show. So you're saying what you're telling people is completely fake, and you're trying to convince people that it's real and legitimate. That's got nothing to do with a rehearsal of an interview or preparing for an interview and having questions prepared and answers prepared. That's your acting gig. That's what you do every day, Megan. So an orchestrated reality show is quite different. And then to say it was rehearsed, of course it was rehearsed. Everything's rehearsed. That's her life. That's exactly what she's been doing for the last, over a decade of this PR construction that she signed up for.
So much scrutiny. Do you have that sense that the combination of the two of you, your different backgrounds, that you represent something new for the royal family?
Now, I know this is quiet, my recording, but it's probably for the best because of copyright issues. So what we've got here is they're actually showing you the PR image and branding that they want you to see of Meghan Markle, that she is of mixed race identity, Wallis Simpson 2.0, and that she's here to modernize the monarchy as much as Wallis Simpson was, as much as Diana was, Princess of the People. So it's always to try to drive relevance to the monarchy, and it's not just, Meghan was not just needed to modernize and keep the monarchy relevant. It was also to globalize the monarchy in a bid for them to get away with constitutional breaches, which they have. I mean, we've normalized things so much. It's crazy. But if anyone, I was actually just saying this to a follower, any Commonwealth citizen or Briton that isn't brainwashed and deluded by idolatry, by idolizing these false idols, anyone can see very, very quickly and very, very easily things that shouldn't be. More than a curtsy, more than the royal family allowing certain things to take place, more than the pregnancies. There are so many things wrong that are constitutional breaches. A lot of it is to do with the commercialization of anything in America by the royal family. Meghan, under titles, is still a royal family member. She's still considered a royal family member, as is Harry, whichever Harry that is. And them registering businesses in America is a constitutional breach. The UK Parliament should be saying that's a concern of national security. Well, America should be saying that. Trump should be saying that. Biden should be saying that, but they don't. And you have to ask yourself why. But there's certain things like even Ngozi Fulani, when that all happened, and then there was a public apology issued. First of all, there was no basis for what happened. It was completely fake and planted to go along with the whole media issue of Meghan Markle that was also planted in 2016. Everything has been created and by design. And when and it's all for Agenda 2030 and to ensure that they have common cause or a cause when they go over to America and they start talking about censorship or they start supposedly suing Royal Rhoda for $1. And Harry has these court cases against media, and it's all just a nice big show. This stuff, it's all intentional and by design. It was a setup, it was a creation and a build-up of this narrative. And when that public apology was issued, I think William supported, or he even issued an apology for Ngozi Fulani and that fake racism, asking where is she from. That was insane to me. That was a huge red flag, as would be any Commonwealth citizen or any Briton who cared or who knew about how the constitutional and ceremonial monarchy worked, because that is unheard of. That is literally unheard of. There are so many instances that are much more serious, whereby the royal family never apologized. They were never in media, and it's become a Jerry Springer show. It's become complete showbiz. And that sort of exposure has to be intentional, has to be a new rebranding and restructure of the monarchy, and it has to be a long-term strategy for a reason. And Meghan Markle is a part of that very reason. She is the vessel. She is the way to move, to create the segue and the gateway for William and Catherine to become global monarchs, to become Americanized global monarchs. And they have. And the same with the whole family. You've got Sophie traveling around speaking at the UN, the imperial government. You can understand it now. You can understand all these moves. And why you're completely distracted and bombarded by this utter shit of Meghan Markle and American Harry. Because there's so much that's happening in the background that you're not really paying any attention to. So this talks about the mixed race identity and how the Harry and Meghan are like the yin and yang of this new modern monarchy, and what the impact they're going to have purely based on identification and or Meghan's identity, really, and the PR importance of that. So already by the staged engagement, they are discussing Meghan's role in this long-term strategy. Make her relevant to the modern generation.
That the combination of the two of you, your different backgrounds, that you
That you represent something new for the royal family. So this gentleman is talking about the British Empire, and it's interesting because they talk about how nothing's changed. It's still the British Empire. It's just a new rebranding. So they even tell you. And the only issue they say was that the British Empire was built off the backbone of slavery, of race slavery. And this is making amends for it, supposedly. Who dreamed that Britain would have a black princess? Who could have conceived that? It was improbable as to be astonishing. Yeah, and it was by design. Jesus. To go from Cressida Bonus and the other one, I can't remember her name, blondes, very, very white, to Meghan Markle. Come on. So this is Harry talking about what he was already doing and what she was already doing, just synchronized and amalgamated to this union. Meghan, whatever she was doing prior to meeting Harry, quote unquote, was created by the palace. It was still the PR strategy and orchestration and construction of Meghan Markle. Nothing she's done has been genuine or real. It's been a pure PR fabrication and build. So everything Meghan identifies herself as is for the agenda, is for this long-term strategy, and it justifies the relationship to some extent, to almost no extent, but it justifies it just a little bit for you to be convinced that it could be genuine. And then it also gives you the relevance of and justifies everything that's happened since Megxit, which is really just the strategy of the monarchy. Okay, we're going to do this job together. Yep, it was a job with American Harry and Meghan Markle, the PR creation. Now, this is talking about, it's so funny. Oh, hold on, I might be skipping ahead. Need a segue to be able to get away with breaching their constitutional agreement with us, leading Agenda 2030. That political advocacy, nay controversy, and it being glorified. Meghan was that segue. Meghan was PR created to be an activist. Okay. So this guy is talking about how really the transition of the PR image of the PR brand of the monarchy, that they were specifically non-controversial, as I was just explaining with the whole Ngozi Fulani. They were non-controversial at all. And even with the Ngozi Fulani example, you can see very, very clearly that the royal family and the monarchy irrespective of Meghan Markle, if you push her aside, even with the narrative, I mean, she helped create this narrative. She was the cause of all these symptoms, of all these actions, but they have acted independently, controversially, and they have made their own choices and their own actions, and they've hidden it under this covert operation of Meghan Markle and this narrative. But in essence, they have acted independently, like the issuing of the apology for Ngozi Fulani. That is controversial, despite it being very small. I mean, it's a testing, it's a grooming, isn't it? Over this period of time, we've gone from a public apology to Ngozi Fulani, to Earthshot, to Catherine and William visiting Boston in America, New York. I mean, to Harry and William becoming global statesmen, to William chatting, having a political meeting with the President of the United States of America, Trump, in Paris, in France. So you can see just how much you've been groomed and how much has been gradually normalized because of Meghan Markle. So the causes were deliberately non-controversial. The causes meaning he's talking... Oh my God, I've just realized. He's talking about, with the causes, he's talking about like being a patron for a charity like the homeless, a charity that helps the homeless, or that helps, really non-controversial. When he's saying non-controversial, he's talking about apolitical charities and causes. And now they can follow political causes, Agenda 2030. And the imperial restructure, which is Agenda 2030. They can be the cultural ambassadors, really representing the spirit of the Holy Roman Empire with the sword. So they are, instead of it being a dual system, a system of an empire, they are creating a sole empire now, a unified, centralized empire. I don't even know where the Vatican stands anymore. The younger royals, we were looking at the future of the British monarchy. Yeah, so this is when in February 2018, the future royals had held their first event together under the Royal Foundation. And do you see how this is still the Royal Foundation? This is before the supposed Megxit, the fabricated Megxit, and that was March 2019, where the Markles branched out on their own as Sussex Royal, and created this chaos that is Archewell and Travellers and so forth, and that polarizing side of that would always be the yang to the yin of William's causes, right? But this is beforehand, and the four of them are all under the Royal Foundation, which James Holt has been employed under ever since in June or July 2016 for the launch of Meghan Markle. And they're creating the new cause, and this is where Meghan Markle in this event, she talks about women's rights. They're talking about they're opening up the lines of being political, and they're saying this is the modernization of the monarchy. This is the future of the monarchy. And this was the first real big event where they're on a platform, on a public platform, having these discussions. This was unheard of prior. Everything has been done covertly. Even with Prince Charles, when he was Prince Charles, being with the World Economic Forum, even with the conservation organizations that his father built, or Club of Rome, or any of that, or Bilderberg, or anything like Chatham House or United Nations, it was all done covertly. It was never done in the public eye. This is now they're on a stage discussing political issues, and this is under the Royal Foundation. So from what you should see from this is that even prior to Meghan and Harry supposedly rebelling, this was the strategy of the monarchy under the Royal Foundation. And as I've said before, because of James Holt being employed so early and then just branching out with Meghan and Harry in their American companies, simply based on the restructure, really these projects are still under the Royal Foundation, really, and still under the monarchy. So this looks completely innocent, and this was completely innocent at the time, because there was no narcissist Meghan Markle. Nothing was really painted as a terrible, terrible situation or crisis, and nothing really unsavory had taken place at this point. With Megxit already being offered, by the way. So before this event, Megxit was offered, and Megxit had been planned. So just keep that in mind. But this was meant to be a completely innocent, something we witnessed as a unification and as like the modernization of the monarchy, and going, oh yeah, about time. Like, this is really, really good. And it's completely steered into a different direction. And this was the intention all along. So turning the most traditional brand of the monarchy on its head was Meghan Markle. So traditionalism versus modernism. Just the branding, the PR stunt that I keep talking about. Later introduced chaos versus order traditionalism, chaos modernism. But in the end, you've got a modernized traditionalist monarchy. So you've got relevance, and you've got a global platform, which is Catherine, William, and the children, and his father. She doesn't shy away from politics. See, it's all about the politics. That's what the controversy is. That's what the relevance is. That's what the restructure is. We're making a constitutional ceremonial monarchy a political one, and a globally political one. So here is literally Harry, or American Harry, saying that Brexit happened with racism and the immigration issue of Britain. That all happened at the same time that their relationship was announced, coincidentally. When I've already discussed with you prior that the launch of Meghan Markle was to coincide with Brexit. This is a completely political act and setup. Brexit was also a part of the plan of Agenda 2030 and Imperial Restructure. You warn that if the government isn't going to do something, or if the media aren't going to sort themselves out, then a culture war was going to become a huge and big real problem. James, it was a perfect storm that gave credence to jingoism and nationalism and gave people with really horrible views of the world a little bit more strength and confidence to say what they wanted to say, to do whatever they wanted to do. So they needed to control dissent. So it was an inauspicious moment for Britain to be trying to live out this fairy tale relationship with the fairy tale princess with this diverse modernizing monarchy. Sorry, there's a lot of fast speech, so I'm trying to see exactly what they said. So they really wanted to mitigate national public riot, and they wanted to continue this rollout of Agenda 2030 and the imperial restructure. Immigration has worsened, so Brexit was completely ineffective, and yet this immigration issue is happening all across the Five Eyes and all across the world. How is that so? You know, you've got to think about these things. But James Holt was, before he was hired in 2016, he was working for the government, so as the head of communications. So this is perfect. This goes perfectly blends in with why James Holt was hired. It was to coincide the monarchy with Brexit and Meghan Markle, and to make this political move seem genuine and fluid, not fluent. It's just amazing that they've got James Holt talking about this. Do you know what I mean? He's talking about this. This fairy tale story, modernizing country, diverse modernizing country. So he's even saying, this guy is so full of shit. He's talking, this guy who's meant to be talking about racism and that how the monarchy is so outdated and etc., etc. He's actually saying that the country is being modernized by Brexit. It's just crazy. Brexit was actually racially charged, and this guy is like saying that the country's modernizing, not regressing, but modernizing. What a plant. Do you see? It's all about the modernization of Britain, which will no longer really be sovereign or national, and the monarchy at the same time. They are both coinciding. You can see Brexit happening with the modernization of the monarchy and the globalization of the monarchy. Exactly the same time our relationship became public. It warned that if the government is going to do something, so they bring in some American twat. Nice distraction. Just in time for censorship and digital ID laws. Misinformation is a huge global humanitarian crisis. So censorship, I mean, it's all just so ingenuine and so intentional and so in your face. And this is the real reason as to why this has all occurred. This is the result. You just needed the cause and effect. Cause Meghan Markle, effect this situation and many situations. I want to finish this little video of collaged clips off by putting a little mini collage together of them talking about the imperial restructure, or the restructure of the British Empire, the Anglo-Saxon system of the Holy Roman Empire. They talk about the restructure that happened, that I've discussed for a long time, post-World War II, the reason for World War II, with the Commonwealth of Nations, but that it was a restructure and just PR rebranding, and that was the end of feudalism and imperialism, so to say, like overtly in your face, with World War I and World War II. And that with that, the only monarchy that was left standing was the imperial global monarchy, the international monarchy, which is the British monarchy of the Holy Roman Empire. And they literally tell you that it is different from every other monarchy that exists because it is an international monarchy. They justify that with the Commonwealth of Nations, but in effect, it's a global monarchy, the only global monarchy that exists. It is an empire. It is the British Empire and the Holy Roman Empire. And that is what you need to understand. And then how it ties in with the execution of Meghan Markle, the PR construction, with this new political move of the restructure of the empire, starting with and around Brexit, and when GDPR was implemented in 2015, I think, opening up or creating open banking, which is the back end of the digital economy that's been created. That all started in Britain, as has every revolution and every civil collapse that has then spurred a restructure. Everything you can ever possibly imagine, World War I, World War II, everything you can possibly imagine has Britain's mitts in it. And you can understand why if you understand the system. So this is a brief mini collage to help you understand that they're literally telling you that this is about the empire, that Meghan Markle and Harry, they're actually relating this narrative and this strategy to the empire, its imperial restructure, firstly with the Commonwealth, and then its restructure with becoming political global statesmen, and actually becoming overtly a global monarchy, an international monarchy that it is, just expanded beyond the Commonwealth of Nations.
Here at Buckingham Palace in 1949, my father met the heads of government when they ratified the London Declaration, which created the Commonwealth as we know it today.
God save the king.
When you study the transition from colonialism to independence of those countries, you see that Britain played a very strategic role. Britain calculated that it needed to grant these countries independence in a way that protected its commercial and capitalist interests. So it creates this privileged club of formerly colonized nations called the Commonwealth. And capitalist interests.
First, reached its first climax with
being an international.
First, reached its first climax with preparations for welcoming the royal visitor.
The British monarchy is different from the other monarchies in Western Europe in being an international monarchy, with the Queen being head of state of over a dozen other countries around the world.
Empire 2.0, because that is what it is.
Well, it's not changed a thing, it's just got better PR.
But this fairy tale is embedding itself in a nation that is having a pretty toxic debate about the European Union.
That's a once-in-a-lifetime chance for us to take back control of this country. Can you hear me in the back? Yeah!
Immigration is the number one issue. So people are very upset. They're very unhappy. If you go back and look at the social media of that moment, immigration is the absolute centre of those debates. And immigration is very often in this country a cipher for race.
Everybody should feel concerned about illegal immigration. We don't know who these people are. Send them back on.
So the Commission report in 2016, exactly the same time that our relationship became public, it warned that if the government isn't going to do something, or if the media aren't going to sort themselves out, that a cultural war that had already existed was going to become huge and become a real problem.
It was a perfect storm that gave credence to jingoism and nationalism and gave people with really horrible views of the world a little bit more strength and confidence to say what they wanted to say, to do whatever they wanted to do.
So it was an inauspicious moment for Britain to be trying to live out this fairy tale story and this fairy tale process in this diverse, modernising country.
I find it very interesting that James Holt feels like it is a problem, a very problematic, that Britons have freedom of speech and that they care about national sovereignty. Do you see how Brexit played out compared to what's happening now with the immigration and the blurring of national sovereignty and the interfaith strategy? It's very, very, very interesting when you see things play out as a pattern, as a system, as a long-term strategy of this imperial restructure and centralization of and standardization of all nations into a global and psychological imprisonment. It's not emancipation, that's for sure. And it's definitely not emancipation. It probably is for the elite and their profits and their gains and their complete control of the system, of all of our natural resources, but not for us.